morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids. Finally. Welcome to the Daily Beaver Morning Show, episode number 473. It is here on the Cryo-Median Network. Yeah. Today, recording day is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. And
I miss my cue.
That's okay. And I think it's going to be a nice day here at the Beaver Lodge. I sort of see some sun trying to peek out above the trees when I look out the window. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver. Pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Apologies for the delay. For some reason, I was having some technical issues and had to reboot. And then Mr. Grizzly was trying to set up the show and noticed that certain of our graphics were not where they normally are when we start the show. So we had to reset them. But we are.
Well, that's what happens when you have multiple people using the studio, right? It's
Yeah.
they set it up there. You know, that's just how it is. It's not a big deal. I just,
But as you can see by Monsieur Grizzly's choix de couleur for his shirt, we have arrived fashionably late. Just saying.
You want to know something? And this is the honest to goodness truth. This is the honest to goodness truth. This shirt is 17 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy crap. Do you wash it like only in cold water and hang dry it?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay, I could see that.
Like, I have a lot of clothes I've bought from H&M, and everybody's like, well, that's disposable fashion. And I go, well, if you treat it that way, it is.
It is, yeah. But no, I have some H&M stuff that lasts forever.
This is not H&M, but I do have H&M stuff that's lasted for 20 years. Why? Wash it by hand, in cold water, hang to dry.
Mm-hmm.
Because, look, it's fast fashion. It's meant to be washed a dozen times, and then that's it, if you throw it in the machine. But if you do it by hand, it will last a lot longer. So you can take that $25 pair of pants and make them last for 10 or 15 years. The only problem is the pockets wear out, and you have to fix that.
Yep, exactly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. And I just noticed I've got this very elegant wisp.
Yes. It's like Superman. Here. It's the Superman wisp.
I know.
Just longer than Superman, but
it's kind of groovy. Kind of like it. Again, fashion. Okay.
Okay.
The kids demand it.
Hey.
Hey. Queen Beaver just loves to serve.
What do horses eat? Hey, what do gay horses eat? Hey.
You've
heard that one before, I'm sure, haven't you?
Yes, I love that one. It's the same. I can't really show it. Well, yeah, I guess I could do it on the box screen. It's like, why do drag queens always enter a room like this?
I don't know.
Because they don't make the doorways big enough for them to enter like this.
Oh,
Darlings, I have arrived.
I'm sorry. I'm just looking something on my feed here that I'll show you in a moment. But oh my
All right.
goodness.
I'll say it again just in case I screwed it up. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Miss V Mysteries from Corby Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. As you can tell, kids and cubs, I'm in a good mood today. Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today, sir?
I think I'm back to myself. Yesterday afternoon, I'm not sure, maybe around 4 o'clock, I had a moment where I was just sitting there and I realized, hey, I have some energy. I feel physically good. I feel emotionally good, not hating myself. I have the energy and the motivation and the desire to get some shit done. The last couple of days, I've not had that. Monday was terrible. Tuesday was marginally better. Wednesday was marginally better. And around 4 o'clock yesterday, it was like, boom, I'm feeling good. I'm back to myself again. It's just a few days,
Mhm.
it was hell, but I'm back to myself. So yeah, this is a good thing. This is a good thing,
Good.
I don't know how or why it happens like that. Sometimes it might be just a lack of sleep. It might be, a change in the diet. It could be whatever. But I'm feeling much better now. So yeah, I'm good,
Yay.
and
Oh,
I got
that makes me
work to do.
happy. That news brings joy. All right. I'm doing, like I said, doing well. I played this tennis match yesterday, not to delay the news a bit, um, against somebody had never played before. Often at our tennis club, once September arrives, we get a whole bunch of new people because they allow a prorated membership.
Hmm.
So when
Hmm.
people come and start school, so there's a whole bunch of new faces. Well, I got this cute young thing yesterday.
Hmm.
Third year university, so early 20s.
Right.
I'm in my 50s.
Got your ass handed to you.
Oh boy, did I get my ass. But he was doing this thing where he would like hit the ball like this, and everything had like wicked, every single shot had wicked spin. I really had to like play aggressive to get the balls fast enough to not give him time to set up to do that, because he was literally just doing that with every freaking ball. It was
Mm.
driving me crazy. It was like, could you just hit me a forehand, for God's sakes? Everything was sliced and short and bouncing. And then he has this thing where sometimes they bounce and they come towards you, and then they
Right.
bounce. Sometimes where they bounce and they just stay there. So
Mm.
often I'm like running to them. Okay, I got it, because this one's going to come to me. It's one of the ones that stay there, and I like just miss it by that much. But after like doing like a
Hello.
quick sprint, and that's been happening to me. So we played one set and I lost it 6-0. And I'm thinking,
Mm.
like, I gotta figure this guy out. Yes. And then the second set, when our time was up on the court, it was 4-2.
Oh.
So I kind of figured it out a little bit. So I was very, very proud of myself, because I mean, there's close to a 30-year difference. And this guy was well, not only was he running me, but I was playing really well, especially changing the ball directions, making the guy go side to side.
Mhm.
But he's 20 something, right? He's got wheels. So
Oh yeah.
he's
Of course.
getting everything. And I'm saying, my God, what do I have to do? I'm playing like a rock star for me. Like, I could not get anything past it, but it was fun.
Awesome.
It was fun. It wasn't like serve and then I was like out. Like
No, it was a
there
good
were
challenge,
rallies.
right?
I was in it. But
Yeah.
like when it was like 3-0, I was sopping wet. There are times I come back and I'm like, there's like just this little wet spot here, and I'm okay. I practiced some stuff, but yesterday that was exercise, man.
Oh, that's
Oh,
good.
yeah,
That's
no,
good
it was
to know.
great. It's a good feeling, actually, to see if you can play at that level and like, that intensity for that long without having a dip. And like I said, I had no dips. I just played well all the way through. But holy crow, he ran me, Alexandre. Way to go, man. So yeah, I'm looking there are people that kick my ass, but I just can't wait to play again because it's so much fun. And then there are other people that just kick my ass, and it's just like, I'm sorry, I just felt like target practice. So thanks, but I think I'll go play against a few other people and try to get better before I ask you to play
Yeah, well,
again. All right, kids and cubs. We have some news. Again, a bit of a mixed bag. But in the headline, so why not go with this? Here, what we put up, Mr. Grizzly writes up a description to start the show. We don't really talk about it, so sometimes I find out what's on his mind. And I figure we could start with this. Now, I don't know that much about this personally to be able to provide some comments, so I'm just basically going to be reading a few things in. But Mr. Grizzly, the issue of the Green Line in Calgary caught your eye today.
Yeah, well, I was reading about it the other day, and I'm a big proponent of public transit. I love taking the train. I think LRT subways are a great way to move people around in an efficient, cost-effective, and pardon the pun, but green manner. That just happened. It just happened. Okay, it wasn't planned. It just happened, but it is an effective way to move people around in a cleaner manner, right? Because
Yes.
buses are, as we know, dirty, diesel spewing. LRTs are electric. And now Alberta's electric grid is different than Ontario's electric grid because most of the electric grid in Ontario is hydro-powered. I think something like 60% of it is hydro. The rest is nuclear, and then wind and solar, which is growing at a great rate. And the reason
Mm.
Alberta was leading in wind and solar is because they don't have any water to have hydropower. I think they have one hydro dam in the entire province, and it does not produce a lot of electricity. So that's why they were leading in green energy projects until Danielle Smith came along and said, no, we need to use oil and gas to heat. Anyway. But I think this is a personal move on her part to try and embarrass Naheed Nenshi because he was the individual who started the Green Line project when he was mayor.
Mm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And it was an NDP provincial government that agreed to the funding initially, and they said, yes, let's go ahead and get this done. Now they're $2 billion into it, and they just canceled it. Now, I said it's conspiratorial for me to say, it has everything to do with her oil baron puppet masters, because we know when she canceled all the green projects that the province was initiating and Alberta was leading the country by a large margin, it's because her oil baron puppet masters made her do it. Now I think they're trying to kill this so they can get more trucks, buses, cars, motorcycles, et cetera, on the roads again, as opposed to having people taking rapid transit. Now, there's still people who don't own a vehicle, so how are you going to get around? Well, either a taxi or an Uber or a bus. And what do all of those things use? Petroleum-based products. It's just a conspiracy theory in my head, but tell me I'm being ridiculous. Am I being ridiculous?
In isolation, you might be, but when you add it to completely, seemingly to get out of, kneecapping itself, punching itself in the face
Yes.
on the renewables sector, and still somehow wanting to go ahead with that mining thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this,
That nobody
everybody
wants.
thought was dead as an issue, but somehow, like a villain in every horror movie, came back again. So, I mean, she talks about, we have to take some time on renewables because it may disturb the beautiful, pristine view. The view, which doesn't make the air cleaner or the water cleaner or reduce the number of GHGs or the amount of ozone in the air or all that kind of stuff, right? It's just the view. But we will do this mining here in this mountain, and
Yes.
we will surrender $137 million back to the federal government because that's just how much we don't want to clean up our oil wells. It's another thing she did. Rather than spend the money, they sent it back. So when you add them all together, I mean, what are the conclusion? Can you? Maybe there is, in the realm of statistical possibility, another conclusion.
Mm-hmm. It's always possible,
but
certainly doesn't look like it.
Yeah, boy, everything seems to be pointing with big flashing neon arrows. to that. It's like, I will not do anything whatsoever that will get in the way of even 1 cent of profit. Now, there's an interesting piece on this that I read from the Calgary Herald from Mackenzie Road, and it says how Calgary's Green Line LRT went from a foundational transit project to a multi-million-dollar bust. And that will probably give a good overview of what's going on here. Calgary City Council decided on Tuesday to wind down, that's the quote, work on the Green Line project at a cost of $850 million. So bringing the total cost of the project to more than $2 billion. So that's when they say $2.1 billion or around that, it's including the $850 million that gets thrown in just for shutting it down early. So that's basically the penalty is not exactly 50% of the cost, but it's not far. I don't know if you want to do the math on that, Mr. Grizzly, at some point.
Sorry, I'll see what I can do. I'm having all kinds of...
Yep, no worries. Council voted 10-5 to stop work and look at ways to transfer management of the Green Line over to the province. The vote landed at the end of a day-long meeting during which municipal officials stressed the city's vision for the Green Line was not feasible without provincial backing, which was suddenly withdrawn earlier this month. Planning for Calgary's Green Line as we know it began in 2011, though the need for a light rail has been under consideration by council since the mid-1980s, according to the city's Green Line project history. So I guess you would be right. That would have been under Mayor Nenshi.
Yes.
In May 2011, around 2150 Calgarians attended open houses where they explored the concept of an LRT line along Nose Creek, Edmonton Trail, and Centre Street North. Quote, a new planning study determined a route based on a Centre Street North or Edmonton Trail alignment, the city noted at the time. In March 2012, the North Central Planning Study looked into land use planning for transit-oriented development, or TOD. This study continued for 2 years, eventually showing communities would be better served if the North Central LRT was more centrally located. By December that same year, the Calgary Herald reported on a draft approval of what the city called the Route Ahead Blueprint, which outlined transit plans between then and 2040. Quote, Calgary Transit's new long-range plan was designed to take the politics out of prioritizing new rail and bus lines, reported the Herald. The plan was to begin with the bus-only lanes in the southeast and along the route down Centre Street or Edmonton Trail, with construction to start in the southeast, but completion on the Centre Street or Edmonton Trail route to be first. This sparked debates between affected areas of the city as residents in each believed they should be first to see improvements. Though the Route Ahead blueprint appeared to be definitive, Shane Keating, Ward 12 councillor at the time, said the real decision would be made when funding actually arrived to build new train lines. Naheed Nenshi, who began his job as Calgary Mayor promising a Southeast LRT to Douglasdale as the first priority for transit grants, said the North-Southeast debate shouldn't exist. He pointed out LRT legs would be connected and built in segments started in 2012 and continuing over the next 28 years. Quote, we are allowing ourselves to be drawn into a debate where none exists, Nenshi said at the time. According to your thinking, it's all one line, he told the Route Ahead authors. Nenshi supported the bus-only lanes, saying a $300 million busway from downtown to the south would shave significant time off current commutes, which was the primary concern heard from area residents. Documents at the time suggested it would save almost as much time as a full LRT would for about 1/10 of the cost. A lack of money at the time meant the city could only partially start either leg of the north-southeast line until 2022, or fund bus lanes from Douglasdale to north of Glenmore Trail in the southeast and on Centre Street from downtown to 24th Avenue north. By June 2013, rapid transit to the southeast had been ranked last in a city study of future transit expansions. A 2013 cost-benefit analysis of the project estimated the Southeast Transitway to $108.81 per rider, with high redevelopment potential at a total of $642 million overall. It was believed it would cut commutes by 13 minutes. Nenshi, realizing there wasn't enough money to fund a $2.7 billion Southeast LRT line, began his push for the Green Line approach, which at the time would have seen the Southeast and North Central routes developed as a single line. In October 2013, the Calgary Herald reported Calgary's relationship with senior levels of government would become critical in the coming years as Nenshi looked to progress the status of the Green Line. By November that same year, due to a $520 million commitment from City Council, transit officials said they would be installing bus lanes and sections of specialized transit roadway piece by piece in a design meant to shorten an 80-minute commute to 45 minutes. The $520 million commitment came from a council decision to use the city's $52 million tax surplus from 2015 to 2024 to fund the Green Line project. In 2013, it was estimated to cost $760 million to fund the entire project, with some of the $520 million going to borrowing costs, so councillors were counting on federal or provincial dollars to arrive to fund part of the busway. So this is 9 years
Mhm.
of accumulated surplus, 9 years of hard work
Mhm.
by city councils, by the people of Calgary, to set that money aside for this project that Danielle Smith has just torched.
Yeah, and the city of Calgary is going to need $300 million to finance the wind down alone, as the cash sources to fund the plan would have been spread out over several years. What's unclear at this very moment if that includes $1.6 billion already committed and $300 million in finance costs, plus it's a minimum. So you're looking at $2 billion to wind it down that the city's on the hook for. And the provinces now, and the province and the city, mostly the province, is paying for a new hockey arena for the Calgary Flames. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's going to be owned by the owner of the team, not the city. So the team gets the city and the province to build him a new rink. He owns it. He gets all proceeds and profits from it. But they're going to spend $2 billion to cancel a public transit line just so they can embarrass Naheed Nenshi.
Mhm.
Is that?
Yep.
Do I understand that correctly?
Yep. Yep. The piece continues. In early 2014, Calgary committed to $889 million in transit investments, including the Southeast Green Line transit-only roadway and lanes along the future LRT corridor and the Green Line bus-only lanes in the north. The city completed TOD background research for the Green Line, including reviewing city policies, North American TID best practices, and conducting a GIS analysis of existing conditions and land use to prioritize site selection. I do not know what GIS is. They didn't introduce the concept before.
I don't know.
Additionally, officials estimated the long-term demand for multifamily housing and the potential for new office space. Yeah, multi-faith housing is definitely a different concept altogether. By all accounts, a plan was underway. By September 2014, officials realized it would cost the city more than $500 million to extend the planned Green Line's bus-only lanes to the South Health Campus in Country Hill Village, beyond the $625 million already pegged for the first phase of the transitway. Calgary didn't have enough money for the first phase, targeted for completion in 2021, which was set to offer specialized bus roads, bridges, and bus-only lanes on existing streets from Centre Street and 78th Avenue north in Huntington Hills down to Douglas Glen Terminal in southeast Calgary. Officials had to pivot and planned to leave out a chunk of the southeast section around Ogden and Riverbend until it could secure $105 million in federal Building Canada fund grants or other money. By the end of 2014, the Green Line, at the time a 40-kilometer LRT line that spanned the city and linked through a downtown tunnel, was seen as unobtainable due to its approximately $5 billion price tag. The federal government, led by then Prime Minister Stephen Harper, announced in 2015 a public transit fund which promised $750 million over the first 2 years spread across the country, with a $1 billion annual fund by 2019. Nenshi, who at the time was still the mayor of Calgary, hoped this would be a fund the city could potentially rely on to upgrade the planned Green Line route between the South Health Campus to Country Hills from a bus-only route into a low-floor C-train link. With the announcement of federal funding, Council put forward a motion to extend the city's commitment of $52 million per year from 10 years to 30 years, ultimately providing $1.5 billion toward the project. Up to this point, the Green Line's multi-billion dollar conversion to LRT had been forecast for the late 2020s or 2030s with no reliable funding stream to deliver it. Still in 2015, the city held public meetings to share options and development concepts for South Hill, Ogden, Linwood, Milliken, 26th Avenue Southeast, and Ramsey Inglewood stations. Citizen input was to be used in development plans. Additionally, the city held several Green Line Southeast public information sessions to, quote, inform citizens about the upcoming engineering and design work to be done, land use studies to be conducted, and outline how interested citizens can be involved in the process, according to the project timeline. By April 2015, the Green Line Southeast Transitway was in its preliminary design stage, and council was to be asked to make a final decision in October. Fabiola McIntyre, a senior transportation engineer with the City of Calgary at the time, said it was hoped construction on the project would begin in 2017 with an opening date of 2021. In July 2015, the federal Conservatives gave Calgary $1.53 billion to be used for the Green Line ahead of a federal election call.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Kenney, Calgary MP and National Defense Minister at the time, announced the contribution. Kenney maintained the timing of the cash infusion was appropriate for a fund announced just months earlier in April and not because of a looming federal election. Now, part of me goes, sure, Jan. The other part of me is it's Calgary. They kind of already owned the seat, so what's the point in buying it? So could be that this was just a legit good expenditure in this case. So the announcement of the federal funding put pressure on the provincial NDP government, as did opposition parties. Maybe that's why the NDP happened to be in power at the time. So
Well,
Daddy Harper came in and helped because Jason had plans.
Of course.
Yes. In 2015, the Wild Rose Party's then finance critic Derek Fildebrandt said, quote, the Green Line is important infrastructure for Calgary and for southern Alberta, and this is the kind of priority infrastructure that the Wild Rose believes we should be focusing public expenditures on. Interim PC leader Rick McIver said the province shouldn't waste an opportunity to partner with the federal government. McIver suggested building the project in stages if the province wasn't ready to foot its share of the bill. Then she pushed the provincial NDP government to make a decision by mentioning job creation. He anticipated 23,000 to be created between construction and operation of the Green Line. The NDP provincial government at the time claimed it was kept out of the loop by the federal government and had already promised billions of infrastructure dollars for Calgary to complete the Southwest Ring Road and construct a state-of-the-art career cancer center, because of course it was shut out by Harper. Conversations of the Green Line being funded as a public-private partnership were brought up by advocacy group Public Interest Alberta. In September 2015, the provincial NDP government committed $162 million to be spent on LRT electrical upgrades and bus rapid transitway projects in Calgary South and North over 7 years. Brian Mason, transportation minister at the time, made the announcement but would not say if the province would commit any money specifically for Calgary's Green Line LRT. He did, however, say, with oil prices remaining low and the NDP government on track to post a $6.5 billion deficit that year, it was unlikely the province would announce any funding for the Green Line in the near future. In December 2015, Calgary City Council was told the provincial government needed to contribute to the Green Line or the city was at risk of losing federal funding. Then she submitted an official request for funding for the Green Line LRT in January 2016. A report to City Council said funding for the project must be secured by October 2016 or construction of the train line could be broken up into stages. Nenshi needed both provincial and federal commitment as the federal funding was first promised by the previous Conservative government, but the Liberals had since been elected into power. Calgary homeowners faced a property tax increase in 2016 of nearly $170 on the average house as a result of the province's annual property tax requisition, a 10.2% increase from the previous year. After facing backlash and resident complaints, City Council decided to grant taxpayers a one-time rebate on the money on 2014 tax bills before scooping up the annual tax room for 10 years to help cover a portion of the city's share of the Green Line LRT. That's what I mean when I said all the hard work.
Mm-hmm.
In December 2016, the federal and provincial governments announced a contribution of $146 million for Calgary's Green Line LRT, with the federal government committing $1.5 billion. Quote, this funding brings us one step closer to beginning construction on the Green Line project, Nancy said at the time of the announcement. Quote, "It's also a show of commitment by all three orders of government to getting that Green Line project done." The joint funding announcement appeared to have removed any uncertainty remaining about the project's completion. By falling short of the overall funds needed, Nenshi said the province's contribution to the Green Line is a step in the right direction. By February 2017, officials estimated the cost of the Green Line LRT to exceed $6 billion and the project to take longer to complete, with construction set to begin in 2019. At this point, the city has already spent approximately $101 million on the LRT project, with no official confirmation of provincial funding specific to the Green Line. The provincial NDP government said it would not commit to its one-third share of the funding until the city was clear about the project's scope and cost. Nenshi and Keating, pioneers of the Green Line, were hopeful of the project's success despite no dollar commitment for the project in the provincial budget. By May 2017, the city's transportation boss revealed the 46-kilometer Green Line LRT would be split into phases, and the first segment, then slated to open in 2026, would stretch 20 kilometers and exceed the initial $4.5 billion estimate for the entire line. Then she said the council's design choices were the reason for the cost discrepancy. City Council approved the final alignment and 28 station locations for what was to be Calgary's largest public works project, the multi-billion-dollar 46-kilometer Green Line LRT, in a 12-3 vote in June 2017. By July the same year, then Premier Rachel Notley pledged $1.53 billion from the provincial carbon levy for Calgary's Green Line LRT. The province's funding was dedicated for the first phase of the project. In October 2017, Jyoti Gondek was elected as Ward 3 City Councillor, saying the ward had previously been overlooked for the Green Line expansion. She said one of her priorities will be to start working on assembling the land along Centre Street to ensure the Green Line could eventually make its way north into far north central Calgary. In December 2017, Mac Logan, former general manager of transportation for the city of Calgary, abruptly resigned. In the weeks before his resignation, Logan was on leave from his job just as work was ramping up on the multi-billion-dollar Green Line project. He received a payout of $471,596 upon his departure as part of a settlement reached between Logan and city management. In early 2018, City Council argued strengths of a northern versus southern expansion of the LRT. The Green Line project team told councillors that one of the strengths of the northern leg is the existing ridership, pointing out that 35,000 people used transit to cross the Centre Street Bridge each day. Councillor Sean Chu offered a more blunt argument on the Green Line priorities. Quote, "The North should go first if we have extra money," said the Ward 4 councillor. An amendment from Gondek directed the city to look at ways to use existing Green Line land in the North for bus rapid transit or other pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. Keating maintained his position on wanting the southern expansion. A report came out in 2019 hinting that the future LRT line would only reach as far north as 64th Avenue North, disappointing Green Line advocates in the area. Due to years of delays, expectations on when Calgary will see Stage 2 with further expansion remained bleak. In late 2018, as the city considered the single-bore tunnel to reduce street-level disruptions during construction of the Green Line, some members of council raised concerns that the flow of information from the Green Line team had gone silent. Then Councillor Drew Farrell of Ward 7 complained that it had been difficult to get a meeting with the Green Line team, and that after years of consultations with the public and councillors on this project, communication had stopped. Gondek agreed, while Keating downplayed concerns. In early 2019, Kenny, who had become leader of the Alberta's United Conservative Party, blasted the city for cutting the Green Line in half, wondering why the Green Line he had funded when involved in federal government was not being built. The UCP leader took to social media to express concerns and complaints over the trajectory of the project. At this point, a formal funding agreement had not yet been signed. Keating admitted the project had fallen behind and officials were trying to catch up. Economists began criticizing the project in 2019, including concerns over the city's liquidity and future costs as a result of Green Line construction in the wake of several other major projects. A group of businessmen helmed by veteran oilman Jim Gray made an informal presentation to Council's Transportation Committee in 2019, urging a halt to spending and a one-year pause to carry out an in-depth review of the project.
Yeah.
Gray believed any stumbles on the project would bring the entire city down. In 2020, Gray called the plan a potential financial disaster. Shortly after Gray's plea, then Councillor Evan Woolley put forward an urgent notice of motion asking for a comprehensive review before the city moved forward with the project to ensure it aligned with the city's current and future financial position. These concerns initiated an independent review without halting work. By summer 2019, the city had split Stage 1 into two parts. The plan was then for construction to begin in 2021 on the southern leg of the route, with work on the core held off until as late as 2022. By December 2019, a council committee agreed to delay on a revealing route option. By December 2019, a council committee agreed to delay on revealing route options for the Green Line through downtown to give officials time to workshop the project. In late 2019, the new provincial UCP government announced its budget delaying funds for transit projects. This would have forced the city to borrow more money, increasing interest payments. The province sought to include a 90-day cancellation clause on its $1.53 billion in Green Line funding, leading the city to turn back to Ottawa for funding or face further delays. In the midst of funding concerns and public distrust, the Green Line Committee began to crumble. A 2019 committee meeting turned to infighting between members. By the end of 2019, several council members were urging the city to nix spending for a planned new arena and instead use that money for the Green Line LRT. And I can't help but notice in this article the number of times they've gone running to Ottawa, and Ottawa has delivered.
Of course. But Ottawa's got to bail them out, right? But the federal government can't tell us how to do anything. Which one is it?
And they hate us.
Yes. But please, can we have the money?
Yes. In a much-anticipated June 2020 vote, City Council gave approval to the first stage of the Green Line, solidifying plans for a new LRT running from 16th Avenue North to Shepherd in the southeast. At this point, the city had spent more than $550 million on the project, still anticipating a 2021 start and 2026 completion with an estimated total cost of $5.5 billion. And just as an aside here, I'm still old enough to remember because Ottawa has an LRT.
Yes.
Sort of. I remember the project ended up being delayed by several years because John Baird, while the Conservatives were in power under Harper, said something at some point, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
The project stopped going ahead, got stalled. And I believe Ottawa and London, Ontario at the time, and I don't know if London has theirs built.
They do.
Maybe
It's operational.
Yes, we're having their projects done at the same time. And John Baird's intervention, who is an MP from the Ottawa area, to delay ours, made it such that both projects were going to be open like within 3 years of each other. And if this was sort of like a temporary competitive advantage thing, where you have two, sort of metropolitan areas that are, important and growing at the same time, putting in LRTs at the same time, while delaying one, where the people don't tend to vote conservative.
Yeah, funny how that works, huh? Yeah.
Kind of kneecaps that city a little bit, just a little stick in the eye.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was during the occupation of Ottawa by the Freedom Convoy folks, how Doug Ford wouldn't lift a finger to support us. Why? Because our member of provincial parliament is Joel Harden, who is NDP. Our member of federal parliament, Yasser Naqvi, is Liberal. Centertown does not vote for anything other than Liberal or NDP, traditionally. So they're not going to lift a finger to help us.
Yep. McIver publicly released a letter to Nenshi acknowledging significant changes in cost and scope since the project's initial announcement, and that the province must ensure the $1.53 billion it had committed to the Green Line was used responsibly. The province also expressed willingness to revisit the 90-day cancellation clause, bringing hopes of provincial funding back on the table. The Green Line Committee spent much of 2021 under review by the UCP provincial government, followed by delays in hiring a company to build the first piece of the project. By June 2021, there was no date for when construction could start. Keating anticipated the UCP review would delay the project by 1 to 2 years. Once the review was approved, McIver called the project, quote, a massive investment in the future of Calgary, acknowledging that the provincial government finally had faith in the Green Line.
Finally.
Yes. Darshpreet Bhatti was appointed as CEO of the project in 2021, saying his major concern was more delays. By January 2022, more than $680 million had been spent on the project. In January 2023, it was announced that Eau Claire Market would be demolished to accommodate an underground Green Line LRT station, displacing more than 50 businesses. Shortly after, in March, the city was in talks of starting Green Line construction in Ogden, with work expected to begin in summer of 2023. Momentum continued as River Run residents were forced from their homes to make space for the LRT project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So people were disturbed.
Yeah.
Businesses were disturbed. People were, I guess the word would be expropriated here.
Well,
I'm not sure if it's accurate.
I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know. I'm going to compare and contrast this to what's taking place in Vancouver with the new subway line they're building there. What is happening is older buildings they're having people move out of. The building's being renovated from top to bottom or actually relocated for the new subway line.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that are living in those buildings get to move back in at the same rental rates they had prior to the renos, which is how it should be done.
Yes.
What's happening here in Ottawa right now is 4 companies own 90% of the rental stock. They buy old buildings, they renovate them, and then when we've talked about it just the other day, how they charge through the roof, they're creating a homeless population. They're pricing people out of the rental market. What's next? I don't know what was taking place in Calgary. I don't know if it was expropriated or if they had an arrangement like they did in Vancouver, but Vancouver's doing it correctly. They are doing it right.
Yeah.
And I know some people are pissed about it, but it's like, well, what are you going to do? Just unhouse people because you want to? You can't do that. You can't just throw people into the streets because you think, well, I got to turn a higher profit. Putting people in the streets costs everyone more money in the long run.
Yeah. Concerns ramped up again in March 2024 when city council members were told costs were expected to escalate. Bati told councillors the Green Line's budget was determined before the COVID-19 pandemic and inflationary pressures had affected the market for infrastructure projects since then. At the end of July, council announced the city was shortening the Green Line LRT again. The revised scope intended to cut costs would take out 5 more stations. Shortly following that, a UCP cabinet minister indicated the province no longer supported the project, and the city considered transferring management to the Alberta government. Each of these concerns further delayed construction on the Green Line, ultimately resulting in Tuesday's decision to wind down the project, costing an estimated $850 million, bringing the total cost of the Green Line LRT project to $2.1 billion, without any track ever been laid.
Of course. And let's go to Naheed Nenshi for commentary on this.
Yes, okay. I was just about to send that to you.
I am crushed, not for myself, not for City Council, but for the hundreds of thousands of Calgarians, the activists, the citizens, the mums and dads, the students who have been advocating for better public transit for their neighborhoods in southeast and north central Calgary for decades. And now they're not going to get it. What the province proved today is they're not only bad at governance, they're bad at politics. They thought as the junior funding partner in this program that they could just simply get everyone else to agree with them. 40 or so days ago, the minister went on the radio and said, we agree with this, we don't like it, but we agree with it. The money is solid, you can bank on it. And 34 days later, without having a single meeting, while a lot of people were on summer vacation, he sent a letter out of the clear blue sky to the city saying, nah, changed our minds. And what this does is this takes away everyone's confidence in the Alberta business environment. Construction companies have said straight out to me, we will never bid on work in Alberta again. And when I said, come on, of course you're going to bid on work. Well, we probably will, but we're going to charge a political risk premium that you charge in a war-torn country or a country with an entirely unstable government, and they said the very same. So can you imagine that the Alberta Advantage has turned into one of the riskiest places for people to invest, which is going to massively increase costs on every project going forward, including all those new schools. Let's remember that this is a government that perpetually is complaining that the federal government takes money out of Alberta and doesn't invest it back. The largest investment the federal government has ever made in a project in Alberta, and they lit it on fire and left it on the table to go be spent in Saskatchewan or Manitoba or Ontario or Quebec. This is not what a normal government does. It is indeed lunacy.
We're talking about corruption at the highest level here. Tell me I'm wrong. You're muted, sir.
Sorry, you're not wrong. We have if you want to look on the other side there, it seems pretty much, this is according to Rick Bell, which you have to take with a grain of salt.
Grain of salt.
Like this. But this piece on new Green Line Smith UCP tells City, it's take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. The choice can't be any clearer. Premiere Danielle Smith's main man on Calgary's Green Line doesn't have the time or the desire to fool around with Mayor Joe T. Gondek or others on City Council posturing to score possible political points. Driven Drasheen, the province no-nonsense transportation minister, my God, so much fluffing already, confirms a few facts as some City Hall politicians mourn the loss of an overpriced stub of a Green Line now mercifully relegated to the dustbin of history. Clearly, this is an opinion piece. Lots of editorializing. Fact number 1, Calgary City Hall talks about transferring the Green LRT to the province, handing them the project. That's not happening. The fact is the Smith government will not pay for a stub of a green line tunneling through the downtown. The Smith government will pay for another kind of green line without tunnels and actually reaching folks where they live. They've got engineers working on that plan now. But the Green Line is still a city transit project. Quote, at the end of the day, this will be a City of Calgary project, says Drasheen. The Green Line won't be taken over by the province. That's never been on the table. Fact number 2. Calgary City Hall is under the impression some or all of the costs of winding down the City Green Line plan, and they are expected to be in the hundreds of millions, will be picked up by the provincial taxpayer. That is definitely not in the cards. Quote, people in Grand Prairie, their provincial tax dollars shouldn't go into paying for 10 years of mismanagement by Calgary mayors and councils. Got it. Fact 3, because it's the big one. If Calgary City Council does not agree to the Smith government's Green Line plan to be rolled out in December, the talk ends. The province walks. Period. Full stop. Quote, if Calgary City Council thinks the alignment we are going to show them and all the Calgarians in December isn't worth it, then the Green Line project won't happen. This is the last chance to get the Green Line built. It would be the end of the line. This is it. That would be the last stop with this council. We wouldn't pursue it anymore with this council. If the City Council elected in October of next year is willing to make the Green Line a reality, the province is open to talking. If this council wants to take it up after the alignment is finalized, that's great. If they don't, well, then perhaps a new City Council will want to build a Green Line. Another move to take control of City Council.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's create a situation where all the blame for the money goes on you so that we can encourage all the Calgarians to vote out all of these incumbents and maybe have people that we would prefer to have there.
Well, she's done the opposite of what Doug Ford did. Doug Ford gave the mayors extra powers, and now the mayors that are in place, he doesn't favor in the city of Toronto. He's regretting his decision, where she's trying to take away powers from the municipality and run everything from her high and mighty chair in Edmonton at the Ledge. This woman is beyond corrupt.
And here we go. The last thing, it's the last stop. This would be the end of the line. Well, she threw another one in there. I hope the City Council can look beyond their tunnel vision and see the big picture. If they cared about Calgary's commuters, they would want to build the Green Line, or else all of this has just been political theater. This is wildly frustrating because we're doing this for the people of Calgary. It's almost as if they forgot about Calgary commuters and why we're building the Green Line in the first place. Drasheen said, nice, nasty. Drasheen says the city would have to put dough into the Green Line. He says the province and the city can work together to keep the costs down. Many on City Council are openly hostile to the Smith government. When they go low, we go high. Not just in the Green Line alignment, but also in how we conduct ourselves. Having part of the Green Line as an elevated train is a possibility. Smith's Green Line point man says ACOM's heavy-hitting consultants are working for the province. They will look at different options, multiple downtown routes, and even bust rapid transit within the $6.2 billion price tag. Drasheen says the deep thinkers did similar work in Houston. He has also talked to the federal government, and their dollars will be there if the province puts their money into a new Green Line. So again, the only stable partner appears to be the federal government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they're out to get you. Allegedly. Gee.
I know.
With a little jousting. This is politics, after all. Drasheen and others in the UCP have called the city's failed Green Line the Nenshi Nightmare. Former Calgary Mayor and Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi has something to say to the UCP. Quote, I will thank them for one thing, says Nenshi, who once promised an inexpensive Green Line going the length of the city. Quote, soon in the Alberta NDP store, you'll be able to buy Nenshi Nightmare merchandise just in time for Halloween. Thanks to them for helping me raise a lot of money. As expected, Drasheen fires back. Quote, if he wants to help us remind Calgarians and Albertans how terrible he was as mayor of Calgary and the nightmares he caused for so many taxpayers, I guess we will welcome the help. Okay. When the guy you tried to stick it to finds a way to flip it, that's clever. When you take the way that the person flipped it and then act like you're a 5-year-old on the schoolyard, I guess we will welcome the help. That's not clever. You need to come up with your own material. They really worked to try and remind him how terrible he was as mayor of Calgary and the nightmare he has caused for like that. It's too many words.
Yeah.
Too many words. It's trying too hard to make it fit.
Trying very hard to make it fit. Now, here's I've got the video you sent me from City Council.
Yes.
I'll put this on the screen. We can have a look.
Government of Alberta terminated the Green Line on September the 3rd, and they came through. They presented a report that's clear, it's robust, it outlines everything that we need to do. Now that the Green Line program, as was presented on July 30th, is done. The letter from Minister Dreeshen clearly states that. The many meetings that administration and I have had with the province tells us they wish for no tunnels, and they are not interested at this time in looking at salvaging anything. They are waiting until their consultant's report comes in before they make any decisions. I could not have been more clear about that in the communications that I sent to council multiple times. I have communicated with each of you about what has come out of the meetings I've had with the province, as well as any meetings that I've had with Minister Fraser. I've been transparent with you, and I have tried harder than anybody to keep this project going. I have begged the province to reconsider that letter. I have asked them to please explain to us what components of the alignment they could keep. And the response was clear. We are not interested at this time. Our consultant is going to give us a report, and at the end of December, we'll think about it. So let's be crystal clear here. The Green Line program that was approved in June of 2020 and then reviewed for a year by the province and then agreed upon by the province, that program had to be revisited in July of this year because of inflationary costs. And then the provincial government sent a letter on July 29th and said, we agree with your amended alignment. We can work with this. Got the same confidence letter from the feds. Then they turned around and issued that letter on September 3rd. I do not understand why a government that supported what we were saying on July the 29th had a change of heart on September 3rd. I don't know why they did this. But withdrawing the funding killed the project. There is no more Green Line as we've known it. There is no mandate for the board anymore as we know it. The 1,000 people that work on the Green Line project do not have a project to work on. And I find it fascinating that people are saying, just pause it, don't rush. These are the very same members of council who complained on social media yesterday about potential property tax hikes. These are the very same members of council who are coming now today and saying, we think it's okay to burn $1 million a day. $1 million a day, burn it, to wait and see for 4 months what the province comes back with. Are you kidding me? On the backs of the people who elected you, on the backs of the people we're supposed to serve, and to compromise the financial position of the corporation to whom you have a fiduciary responsibility? This is absolutely ludicrous. I in no way can support this pause because there's nothing to pause. The project is done. And I just want to say that, yes, this is political in many ways, but I do also want to stress that when you call out a partner who happens to be a government for reckless behavior, that's not playing politics. That's actually speaking the truth. And in this case, it's speaking truth to power. We are talking about the government that holds reins over us. And we are speaking the truth about what has happened here. It is the truth to say that we don't know what their plan is. It is the truth to say that we can't predict anything. It is truthful to say that we don't know what the oversight, delivery, or risk management on this project will look like. It is the truth when CFO Mail said that there is real human impact here. And some of those people are sitting just behind you in that front row today. It is absolutely the truth to say that there's no recovering from this from a trust and confidence perspective, as was so eloquently summarized by Vice Chair Bourne today. It is the truth to say that council joined with administration to do joint advocacy on this project. Many members of council participated in the advocacy work. It is the truth to say that the government of Alberta administration was regularly updated on project costs, as well as plans and next steps. It is the truth to say that over the last 10 years, we have worked extensively and exhaustively with both orders of government. It is the truth to say that we are going through about $20 to $30 million a month in burn rate on this project. It is also the truth to say that we know design change will come with the alignment change that's being proposed. It is the truth to say that this will need to be a re-procurement. There will need to be a new design. There will need to be contracts that have to be bid on. There will have to be collaboration with the federal government to get funding. And then there will have to be collaboration with the city. These are all facts. This is not an opinion, and is most certainly not a political opinion. So when you lay out what's happened in the situation that we're in, which is one that none of us wanted to be in, there is an order of government that needs to take responsibility for their action. And there's another order of government, which is ours, that needs to do the right thing, which is to wind this project down, although it's not what any of us wanted to do. So I appreciate the debate from my colleagues. I very much appreciate the leadership that has been shown by Mr. Fairburn, Mr. Bourne and Ms. McLeod, your leadership by being here today, the leadership of Mr. Putty and Ms. Tynan as we did advocacy on this project, and your entire team. I can't thank you enough for almost bringing to bear a project that would have set the future in action. And I'm so sorry that you're experiencing what you are today.
Wow. Talk about not pulling your punches. Here's the thing. As I stated at the top of the show, it looks to me like oil baron puppet masters of Danielle Smith are pulling her strings. Cancel all the green projects, wind and solar, cancel them all. No more provincial funding. Build the rink for our billionaire buddy. Cancel the Green Line. That way we'll have more cars, trucks, and buses on the road. And coal and oil to heat and cool the province to generate electricity. Look, there's not a city on earth. You take New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, Moscow, for that matter, that regrets investing billions of dollars into their subway or LRT systems. They are not meant to be a profitable venture.
It's a
They are
service.
meant to service the public.
It's not a business.
It's not a business. It needs to be run publicly at the public purse. so that people can get where they need to be.
So that businesses can run.
This is the thing. The government is supposed to service the people. We have a surplus this year. Then you failed in your job. You failed miserably. You should never have a surplus as a government. Your goal is to break even. If you have a surplus, it means you've cut and somebody somewhere has suffered, and I guarantee you, it is not somebody who is wealthy. It is not a company with a lot of money.
Mhm.
People who suffer, guys like me, working class, working poor, and poor. We suffer because they cut programs that would benefit us,
Mhm.
because there's more of us than they are of them.
Yeah. And this is the thing when I'm broadening this out to the federal level. There are a lot of people that say that they're tired of the current government. They want some change. And I always say, okay, well, change is nice, but you always have to ask, change to what?
Change to
Right?
what?
Not liking what you got or not being appreciative of what you got is one thing. But if you're going to make a change, then change to what? Now, we see what's going on in Alberta. World-class health system, the AHS, being vandalized. A high-quality education system.
Mm-hmm.
Now with
Handed over to private schools,
Yes,
private
and
religious schools.
yes, and now like overcrowded
Mhm.
classes, and they just announced a whole bunch of money for school funding, but it looks like a good chunk of it's going to build some chartered schools, and nobody can still explain why the one chartered school they built cost that much.
42 million, was it?
Yeah. We have in Ontario everything that
Yeah.
Doug Ford is doing. Starting with the green belt stuff, and then the Service
Ontario
Canada
Place.
stuff,
Oh,
Ontario
yes.
Place,
And not Service Canada, but Service Ontario.
and then deciding not to take the $1 billion from the 407 thing, and then it's
Yeah, the $1 billion penalty for 407, he just waved his hand and said, no, we'll make that go away. Meanwhile, we got beer in a corner store. Can't get a doctor, but I can get a pint.
Yep. And then there was another thing going on, and I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but maybe Saucy is there, because I believe Saucy's the person who sent it to us. Something going on between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, where it seems as well for some type of project that's needed between them two, that the federal government was supposed to fund as well, and the federal government has the funding there, but they've decided nope, they're not going to do it.
Doesn't New Brunswick have an $8 billion surplus under the Higgs government?
It does.
Yeah, in a province with a population of 850,000 people. How many services were cut to create an $8 billion surplus? People in New Brunswick should be outside his front door with pitchforks and blowtorches or torches. You know what I mean? It's like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. So
it's an $8 billion surplus in a province with a population of 850,000 people. Try and go to the hospital. If you're not emergent care, if they triage you and go, oh, you're going to have to wait for a few days.
Yeah, there we go. I think Kit Saucy just sent me the link to the story. Thank you so much. I'm glad I was able to remember who sent me the link if I couldn't remember the title of the story. But yeah, it's Ottawa. Oh, it's Ottawa. Sorry, threatened. Yeah. So basically, it's the Chinecto Isthmus project. So it says here, this is from Global. Federal cabinet ministers are threatening to pull an offer of $325 million to protect a vital land link between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, unless the two provinces agree to share costs. Letters released Tuesday by Infrastructure Minister Sean Fraser and Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc says they'll shift the money elsewhere in the country if the provinces won't pay their half of the $650 million cost of upgrading the Chignecto Isthmus. Climate researchers have forecast that one severe tidal storm moving up the Bay of Fundy is capable of overcoming dikes, flooding communities, disconnecting the province from the rest of Canada, and stopping ground or rail transport of goods and services. Premier Tim Houston sent a letter Sunday to 7 Liberal members of Parliament in Nova Scotia, urging Ottawa to fully fund the expensive work needed to protect the Chignecto Isthmus. In his letter of response, Fraser writes that Atlantic Canadians won't be pleased to learn that Ottawa is ready to invest hundreds of millions of dollars, but cannot because provincial governments are making a conscious choice not to help. The letter says if Nova Scotia and New Brunswick are not willing to pay for half the cost of the project, he will transfer the money, which comes from Ottawa's Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, to provinces willing to be more cooperative. LeBlanc's letter said the two provinces have, quote, refused to budge from the position that Ottawa should cover the full costs and are causing delays by taking the matter to court. Fraser's letter also expresses political frustration with the Houston government over its tactic of blaming Ottawa rather than collaborate on solutions. So here you have the premiers, the conservative premiers of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, which is running a surplus, saying that they don't want to come up with $650 million for their share of something that's part of an environmental disaster mitigation and adaptation fund. So it's a project to keep people safe, because the first responsibility of a government is to keep the people safe. But they've got money for a legal court fight.
Yeah. Explain that.
And they've got money for the increase in costs that are going to accumulate on this project because they're choosing to go to court rather than just agreeing to pony up their $650 million so they can get it built now at today's prices. Which will probably end up being way more than $650 million when you add it up. I don't know if there's a formula for like what every 1 year delay, what percentage of the project it is, but so it's not that they don't have the money. Right? It's just that they'd rather spend it on not giving you nice things.
Here's an interesting headline from RE. Ottawa negotiated a $500 million bailout for Nova Scotia Power over Muskrat Falls delays. Natural Resources Minister says money will be used to prevent a 19% hike in electricity rates. Federal Natural Resource Minister Jonathan Wilkinson made the announcement on Monday in Halifax, that was September 16th, saying Nova Scotia Power Inc. needs the money to cover higher costs resulting from the delayed delivery of electricity from the Muskrat Falls hydroelectric plant in Labrador. Nova Scotians already pay higher energy bills than many provinces in the country. Immediate cost recovery of these costs. Where did that story go? Sorry, I'm just trying to move it here. No, wrong tab. My apologies. Wrong tab again. Okay, come on, Paul, get it together. Well, I don't know where it went. There it is. Wilkinson said that without the money, the subsidy in Halifax-based... Wilkinson said that without the money, the subsidiary of Halifax-based Emera Inc. would have increased rates by up to 19% over a few years. Nova Scotians already pay higher energy bills than many provinces in the country. Immediate cost recovery of these costs in 2025 could have resulted in a potential near-term increase in power rates, the minister said during a news conference. The action we are announcing today is anticipated to reduce the annual increase very, very significantly. Wow.
So I'm looking at all this gross mismanagement. This wanting to break things, destroy things. I was like, these are just a few provinces. Imagine a whole country.
Yeah.
Somebody that's just going to come in and say, this industry, no, we're just going to pull that funding. Lack of stability, inserting chaos, randomness, lack of dependability. Just a parade of incompetence.
Constant parade of incompetence. Constant.
When right now, we are being led by someone that, as I mentioned before, I think this is a tack that the Liberals should take. It's like, you know what? We came in with sunny ways. We've had tough times. boy, have we ever had tough times.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but now it's time to look towards the future. We've done the hard work and to, have some hope and some optimism again. That's anyways, because we've been through the worst global pandemic and economic crisis in about 100 years.
Yes.
And yes, inflation did hit 8.1%. And yes, interest rates did go from record lows to like some of the fastest increases since the 80s, but to 5%. And the Bank of Canada, with all of this happening, the Bank of Canada's strategies and a lot of hard work from Canadians and hard work by the governments,
Yes.
now have inflation at exactly 2% on the target, on the nose, so much so that some people are starting to worry about deflation because that is an issue. When you get into a deflationary period, people think, well, prices are going down, that's great, but it also makes it such that people stop spending because they say, well, let's see how low these prices are going to go before I buy stuff. And then that can become a very bad cycle to get out of if you just ask Japan, for example. So I think they had like close to stagnation for almost like 20 years or something.
Yes, something like that.
It's been something, yeah. So that's also not a cycle that you want to get into. But we have interest rates going down 75 basis points with 3 cuts so far. We have inflation at 2%. Gas prices are pretty darn good, considering the carbon tax is supposed to have crippled us, and raising it to 61 cents is supposed to allegedly bring on nuclear winter. When if you compare the price of gas to other countries like France and ours is still lower.
Well, here's the irony.
And it's not nuclear winter there.
Here's the irony, right? People will complain about the cost of a price of a liter of fuel at a gas station. I get it. I've done it too. It's like, oh my God, $1.50 a liter. Then they'll go into the corner store and buy a half a liter of water for $2. Water that's free from your tap. They won't think twice about paying $2 for half a liter of water. You do realize that gasoline, petrol, fuel is one of the cheapest commodities you can purchase, period. And yes, I'm not saying that it's not, you might not buy 60 liters of water in a shot. But if you bought 60 liters of water at $2 for half a liter, it's a lot more than the $1.40 you're paying for the liter at the pump, or $1.50 or whatever it is. So there's a lot of things to look at here. And here's something that I want to share with you right now, because this came out, when was this? Yesterday? Yes, I just saw this now from Pierre Poilievre. And I know we harp on him a lot, but I'm going to read this tweet to you in a sec, and then I'll show you something else that you'll find very interesting. So he tweeted this yesterday at about 10:30 in the morning. After NDP Liberals, notice NDP's in front now? After NDP Liberals doubled housing costs, hiked food taxes, punished your work, and unleashed crime everywhere, they're now quadrupling your carbon taxes to 61 cents per liter. Okay, please tell me how the government did any of those things. I'll wait. I want somebody to explain to me how the federal government was able to double housing costs, hike food taxes, punish your work, and unleash crime. I need somebody to explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. Because I'm telling you right now, the government didn't do any of those things. And this guy just lies every single day. So he follows up that ridiculous paragraph with, we need a carbon tax election so Canadians can vote to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
I'm not sure how eliminating the carbon tax does anything.
It's going to do any of that.
The tax.
Yeah.
And
how is it going to do any of that?
And he's not really going to axe the tax. It's just going to be a hidden fee that gets embedded because we still need to do business with other nations and respect our international treaties.
He cannot axe it.
Go on.
You'll just lose your rebate, and he'll call it something else. We have trade agreements around the world with countries that it is part of the agreement. And he tried to pull a fast one in the budget when he says, they're putting a carbon tax agreement with Ukraine, and we're not going to allow that. No, Ukraine already has a carbon recovery fee. They have since 2012. because their trade agreements with other European nations require it. We weren't putting anything in there that wasn't already there. The guy just lies continually. But I think his lies are beginning to catch up with him, because look at this little thing from Polling Canada.
Mm-hmm.
The question put forth by Polling Canada. Now, you know how I feel about polls, but let's read this. Poilievre and the Conservatives have a hidden agenda they won't reveal until after they win the election. Agree, 54%. Disagree, 30%. Unsure, 16%. Angus Reid, September 4th, 2024.
And why wouldn't they think that, considering all the bait and switching that they've seen in Ontario and Alberta in particular?
Yes, all the Conservative-run provinces have suffered at the hands of these people. And they've suffered at the hands of Conservative governments who are cutting services to the bone. I just don't understand how people can continually vote against their own best interest just because they're tired of the current government. People want to vote. You want to vote Trudeau out, go ahead and do it. But do not get mad at me when I say, I fucking told you so.
Here's the other one from Polling Canada that you might like, Mr. Grizzly. That's very revealing.
Thinking about the possibility of the Conservatives led by Poilievre forming government after the next election makes you feel fearful, 28%. More fearful than hopeful, 18%. More hopeful than fearful, 18%. Hopeful, 17%. Neutral, 14%.
So on the fearful side, it's 46%, and on the hopeful side, it's 35%.
Yeah.
So this, when people are commenting about if he's leading by 20%, if the party is leading by 20% in the polls, as Abacus claims, because how was he not able to snag one of those by-elections? Why are people more fearful than hopeful? And why do a majority of Canadians believe he has a hidden agenda? It's parked vote. That's not firm vote. That's parked vote. Sending a message to some other party, please do something else, because it's almost like Canadians go, don't you make us kick you out.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Look, we tried to warn Alberta, and we tried to warn the province of Ontario. We had shows about it. We talked about the Alberta election for weeks before. Once the writ was dropped, we had a few shows. We had Max Fawcett on. We had a few different people on to come in. We had Dave Berta. We had a bunch of guys from Alberta. Charles Adler came on the show the night of the election. And we all tried to warn the province of Alberta of what would happen if you handed the reins of power to Danielle Smith. They voted her in anyway. And look what is happening to the province. We warned people about Doug Ford. Nobody listened. Look what is happening to Ontario. Do we have a magic ball and look into the future? No. We just look at who these people are, what their track record is, what they say, and what they're going to do. It's not rocket surgery, man. It's not rocket appliances, as Ricky would say.
Mm-hmm.
You just look at their track record. You look at their history. You listen to what they say. And when people tell you who they are, believe them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, the reason I'm shifting over this way is because Pierre Poilievre has made it very clear yesterday that he intends to introduce a confidence motion. Mm-hmm. And Pierre thought he was going to be clever. Mm-hmm. Because he actually introduced, in terms of the text of the motion, a clean motion. Mm-hmm. So basically, sort of like, the House has lost confidence in this government or something like that. Pretty straightforward, no fluff, no blah, blah, no any of the stuff that we've come to know from him. But when he's talking about it, he says, of course, and basically, I saw that and I thought, well, that's not going to work for you because you have a text of the motion that says we don't have confidence, but it doesn't say why. Now, I don't know if there's anything else when you present the motion that comes in that gives a reasoning or a rationale in the motion. It's not as part of the motion tabling documents. That's not part of the wording of the motion. But he's very clear, even though he put that motion down, he's still going around and saying we need a carbon tax election. The reason that we don't have confidence is because of the carbon tax, which is not happening in Quebec. it's not, and when I say it's not happening in Quebec, I mean it's not
Mhm.
happening in two ways. One, there is no federal backstop because they participate in the cap and trade program along with California, the same program that Ontario was participating in before Doug Ford took us out of it and imposed a carbon tax, the federal one, on the province of Ontario. But never mentioned that part.
Well, and remember what else Doug did at the time was he canceled all the green energy programs, all of them, and pulled out electric vehicle recharging stations. He pulled them out.
Yep.
But now he's all in on it. Why is that? Now, why is that? Oh, his wealthy developer donor friends own the companies that he's all in on now. It's all a grift. It's all a grift, and we're the ones getting fleeced. How do I know this? Oh, I don't know, because my dad had to go to the emergency room recently as instructed by Telehealth Ontario and was there for 27 hours waiting to see a doctor. Thanks, Doug Ford.
So the Bloc leader is not in on this, and he's actually said it right. It's just not, listen, Gretchen, you're trying to make fetch happen, and it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's not playing us. And one thing he said very, very, very specifically says, you need to understand that I'm not the Liberals and I'm not the Conservatives. I'm the leader of the Bloc Québécois.
Yeah.
What does the Bloc Québécois do? If it's good for Quebec, they vote for it. If it's not good for Quebec, they don't vote for it. Going to an election now on wanting to eliminate something that would make it harder for Quebec to export its projects out, that goes against what is a concept that the Quebecers have bought into, is not, but it's not what's good for Quebec. I don't care what impact it has on you. I don't care if it frustrates you that you can't go to an election now. It's like, my interest as the leader of the Bloc Québécois is it's good for Quebec. And I see the subtext that's not said here is I see all of you complaining about what Quebec gets as you're trying to do your little thing. I see how you badmouth us francophones when you think we're not in the room, but there are cameras everywhere now. Everything's recorded and everything's digital. We know what you say about us when we're not there. So in what realm, galaxy, universe, postal code, whatnot, is a Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre better for Quebecers than a Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who's actually from Quebec?
Yeah.
Why would I help you? So what's in it for me as a Quebecer to switch a Trudeau for a Poilievre? That's a worse deal.
Yeah, it's a terrible deal.
It's a terrible deal.
Well, they all know.
It's like you can present all of these motions, basically saying you can present all of these motions that you want, boo boo kitty. It's like, I'm not here to help you. And we already know you no good. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good, baby, you're no good. So, no.
No. I gotta jump. I gotta take her out. She's getting desperate. You want to keep rolling, and I can join you back in a bit? Okay. I'll see you soon.
So yeah, they've decided no. It's just not happening. It's so yeah. And then there's a journalist yesterday that asked Le Québécois, so you have confidence in the Trudeau government? And then responding in French, but in the way that Monsieur Blanchet has, in the style, it's like, basically, and this is my translation of it, is, "Aw, that's so not subtle, but I take it with a grin. No, I do not have confidence in the Trudeau government, but I do have confidence that we can reasonably get to an increase in the pensions for 100,000 Quebecers and 1 million Canadians with C319. I reasonably have confidence that we will be able to secure protection of supply management, and I reasonably have confidence that, and I reasonably have confidence, that it's necessary, and if the Liberals do not deliver our demands, we will have enough leeway to make the government fall within a reasonable amount of time." So the Blocs on the record is like, no, we want to see if we can extract some things from this government. And so, there are things that are priorities to the Bloc that they would like to have, that they would be advocating for, and I'm sure that there are certain areas in that where the federal government would be happy to participate. Others might be a little trickier, but for example, extracting more guarantees from the federal government with regard to supply management for dairy products. That could be something that the Bloc angles for in its negotiations. More funding for Quebec for all the work it is doing, taking in asylum seekers, because they are taking in a larger proportion than the majority of the country. And it's a federal program, but the costs come to the provinces. So that could be something that the Bloc Québécois asks for. According to iPolitics here, it says the federal Conservatives are planning on moving a motion in the coming days declaring non-confidence in the Trudeau government and sending voters to the polls. But the Bloc Québécois says it won't support it, ensuring that there is no early election, at least right now. And then you have all the stuff that Pierre Poilievre said about why we need a carbon tax election. But Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet ended any suspense before question period on Tuesday by announcing his party would vote to prop up the Liberals. Quote, "The Bloc is in service of Quebecers, not the Conservatives," he told reporters in French. The move was hardly a surprise, as the Bloc had signaled their intention to win gains for Quebec in exchange for supporting the Liberals, which needs the votes of one of the opposition parties to survive confidence tests. But the NDP has remained largely mum on how they'd vote. Leader Jagmeet Singh says he'll consider whether to prop up the Liberals on a vote-by-vote motion, though the party didn't immediately respond to requests on their decision on Wednesday. News of the non-confidence motion comes only days after the Liberals lost a usually safe Montreal seat to the Bloc, and the NDP held a key Winnipeg riding in a closely watched by-election. Before their caucus meeting earlier in the morning, most Liberal MPs appeared confident the government would survive the non-confidence and warned of the consequences, bringing Parliament to a premature end. Health Minister Mark Holland said Canadians don't want an election at this time and needed their government to deliver for them. Quote, "I mean, there's a time to do work and there's a time to vote, and there's a time for policy and a time for politics. And my instinct going around the country is people aren't braying for more politics in their lives. They are braying for solutions and for parties to work together." Government House Leader Karina Gould said it would be up to the Bloc and the NDP to decide whether to keep the Liberals in office, but failing to do so would derail important progressive policies. Quote, "What I can say is there are consequences to the actions that people take. The fact of the matter is that what we do in this place matters, that it has real and tangible consequences on the lives of Canadians. And what Mr. Singh did when he backed away from the supply and confidence agreement, which was his decision, is it demonstrated that he didn't understand what the consequences were," she said when asked by iPolitics about the prospect of a non-confidence motion. Quote, "And so if he cares about climate change, if he cares about pharmacare, if he cares about dental care, if he cares about continuing to advance progressive agenda for Canadians, well, he's going to have to demonstrate that." She also said the Liberals were not planning on proroguing Parliament to stave off a confidence motion. Doing so would have allowed the government to unilaterally curtail the House business and start a new session. Now, according to iPolitics, it says the Liberals had met every condition of the deal until it was ended, including advancing NDP priorities like pharmacare and expanding government support for dental services. So again, the move is kind of inexplicable from the NDP in this context. So, and I think upon getting more news and finding this out yesterday and what the Bloc's position was and a bit more of Yves-François Blanchet's thinking behind it, I think, and what Karina Gould said specifically about it, is that article that Mr. Grizzly was pointing out that had the title that the Liberals will let the motion go through. I think maybe if we're looking, because we were sort of questioning that word choice, because essentially there are opposition days and they have to be handed out. So it's not like the Liberals have to let things happen. But in one sense, they do, because even though there are a certain number of opposition days and the Liberals can't do any change to that, the Liberals can control or exert some control on when those days are given. So, for example, they could have set them all up at the end of the session so that they can get through the entire session and not face a confidence vote. So when they say, I guess if you were looking at it in the sense that they're letting it happen, then they're letting it happen in the sense that they are not going to use the various powers or maneuvers or their scheduling power in order to thwart the holding of the vote on the motion next week, as the Conservatives would like. So they're not running away from this fight, essentially. But it's pretty clear, and it should be very clear to Pierre Poilievre, that this motion is going nowhere and that he's literally just lighting taxpayers' dollars on fire and wasting their time, wasting the time of the people, because he's not doing the business of the people. 56% of the people, according to Ipsos, do not want this. So, now one could say that he is representing his base that does want this, right? So you can make the argument both ways. But the House sits for a certain amount of time, and what you make time for, government or an opposition party can tell you what their priorities are, but the priorities are the things for which they make time and the things on which they spend money. So, holding a vote that they know that will go nowhere for the purpose of nothing other than PR, taxpayer-funded PR instead of party-funded PR, is a choice. That's their priority at the moment. The priority is not you, clearly. Because, if you want to lead a nation, then you would listen to a nation, and the nation is telling you that we don't want an election now, a federal one. But you're still doing everything that you could possibly do in your power, your limited and impotent power at the moment, to make one happen. And it's literally action for action's sake. Not sure. Yep, Kit PNC Bio, I see your thing here. Totally off topic, but is there a reason on the Pride Rainbow 6 colors instead of the usual 7? Yeah, exactly. And Mr. Jim found it out. I'm using a green screen, so the green stripe on the rainbow kind of vanishes. You'll see it in the flag, and you'll see it in the wristband as well. The green sort of disappears. There you go. So yeah, that's basically what's happening on that front. Media was covering it breathlessly, like, the worst stakes in this could happen at any time, rather than the angle that Pierre's just wasting your time. And similar to the by-elections, it's Trudeau, rather than Conservatives didn't win anything, despite an alleged 20-point lead in the national polls. You would think that would be a story, or an angle, or a narrative, but it's not really out there now, is it? So, I'm not saying it should be the dominant one, right? But it's not particularly present. which is kind of interesting here. Other things going on. Hello there, sir. Lovely to see you.
Good day. I'm just going to hang out here in the background and monitor while I'm out with the doggy because she's being really rambunctious. So I'll join you guys in a few minutes.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, all of this to say that it's like I said, not going anywhere on that motion, and then for the Bloc Québécois, at least for the foreseeable future, right? It seems that their position is that there's more political advantage for us as a party in a minority liberal government than a conservative majority, and therefore we will behave accordingly. So we'll see where that ends. Like I said, it's if the government is going to fall, I don't see it happening before a budget. That would be the first opportunity. And there again, come budget time, a lot will depend about on where the NDP are sitting in the polls, because if they're still between 15 and 18%, they might still want the extra one way between April and October. That's still 6 months, which is a long time in politics to try to turn some fortunes around. Or if they feel they might need a little extra time to fundraise. But the NDP does seem to be in a good financial position. They claim to be in the best financial position they've been in a long while in terms of all their debt from the previous election is cleared up. I'm not sure whether or not what they borrowed against their headquarters has been repaid as well, because I know that that was a thing at one point. What they borrowed against the equity from their headquarters office. So I don't know if that completely has been paid back, but I would assume so, and that they're starting to accumulate money. And given that there are spending limits in an election, where every dollar over the spending limit for your party is money that you can't use. It's money that people will tend to use in the before writ period, like the Conservatives are. That's why you see them everywhere, because they've just got so much money that they can be doing these blitzes 24/7 and still have enough money to run the entire election. The NDP, I'm not sure if they are there yet. And if they're not there yet, if they're able to get there by April, then it becomes a more likely possibility that the NDP would then vote to take down the government at the budget. So that's a number and a metric that you should keep your eyes open: fundraising, cash on hand, and whether or not they actually do have enough in the banks to run a full election. If they don't, then it would probably, the next opportunity would just be when the government falls regularly, or maybe a month before that, if somebody wants to try to grab a headline or something with a confidence motion and everybody says we're going. The other metric is until you hear people hear about parties making reservations for planes, it's probably not happening. As well. So, yeah. And then for the Bloc, it would probably be the same thing if the Bloc is having its demands met, and the Liberals have been showing that they're a somewhat reliable partner when it comes to the NDP, so there's no reason to suspect that they would be a less reliable partner with the Bloc if they gave their word. Plus, it's in the Liberals' interest to do that, especially if they want to maintain their strong foothold in the province. A Liberal Party that is collaborating cooperatively with the Bloc on issues that both of them agree upon are in the best interest of Quebecers is probably better than not for both the Bloc and the Trudeau government, because I'm sure both of them would have a vested interest in trying to get the Conservative voting intentions in Quebec significantly down under 20%, because that's dangerous for the Bloc as well. It helped the Bloc on Montreal Island. They were able to slide through during that by-election, but in the rest of the province, where there could be a conservative Bloc Québécois battle, then that opens up the same dynamic for the Liberals to slide up the middle. So the Bloc's not too keen on that. They would rather an election that happens as it usually does, that it's usually a battle between them and the Liberals, and they're first or second. They don't like three-way races that could make things messy and end up with the Bloc with getting like 32 seats rather than 50-something. With vote splits and slides up the middle. So it's even though the Bloc Québécois is doing well in polling in Quebec, the Bloc Québécois is not necessarily advantaged by three-way races. So I'm sure that Monsieur Blanchet would be quite happy spending a few months punching down on Pierre with the help of the Prime Minister, two Quebecers standing together against some guy who's a quite Anglo-Saxon, let's say. Let's just have a little sip here. All right, kids and cubs. I'm going to move to the United States for a second, because there's a story that is developing there. And I wanted to bring it to your attention because, as you know, in Alberta, what Danielle Smith is doing with the AHS and planning to give the operation of certain hospitals to Covenant House, which is a very, very, very sneaky way to curtail the right to choice, and particularly to access an abortion without having to pass laws. There's been a death in the state of Georgia as a result of their laws, the changes in laws over there with regard to that. And it's quite a harrowing story. And the thing that you have to understand about this is that there seems to be a 2-year backlog in examining cases of people who die in such ways. So this is one of the first ones that are coming out. And I suspect that it's going to be far from the last. During the Democratic National Convention, there was a moment that we presented to you where there were 3 testimonials about what the lack of access to abortion and related care could do. And the first was a couple, and one was a mother. She was a mother already, but she had a birth that had some complication, and she basically had to bleed out and almost go into shock before she could come back and they could help her. So while at first she was worried more for the child, and so was the father, at the end the father is hoping that he doesn't lose both of them, right? Which should not be a consideration at all, right? If we're talking about pro-life, then that should include the life of the mother, and saying that you have to wait until you're nearly dead and hopefully we'll be able to bring you back. No. So according to ProPublica, which is the source to everybody, to which everyone is referring, I'm going to read this article to you because what has happened is absolutely terrible. It's what everybody said would happen. It's what the people on the other side, no, that's not going to happen. And now that it has happened, they're being asked about it, and they're saying, oh, you're just fear-mongering. Well, again, this might be the first of many, given that they're just getting around to investigating these types of things, and this law has been in place for about 2 years. Candy Miller's health was so fragile, doctors warned having another baby could kill her. Quote, they said it's going to be more painful and her body may not be able to withstand it, her sister Turia Tomlin Randall told ProPublica. But when the mother of 3 realized she had unintentionally gotten pregnant in the fall of 2022, Georgia's new abortion ban gave her no choice. Although it made exceptions for acute life-threatening emergencies, it didn't account for chronic conditions, even those known to present lethal risks later in pregnancy. At 41, Miller had lupus, diabetes, and hypertension and didn't want to wait until the situation became dire. So she avoided doctors and navigated an abortion on her own, a path many health experts feared would increase risks when women in America lost the constitutional right to obtain legal medically supervised abortions. Miller ordered abortion pills online, but she did not expel all the fetal tissue and would need a dilation and curettage procedure to clear it from her uterus and stave off sepsis. a grave and painful infection. In many states, this care, known as a DNC, is routine for both abortions and miscarriages. In Georgia, performing it had recently been made a felony, with few exceptions. And that's the thing with these laws, because you have to understand that a DNC has nothing to do with an abortion, because it's a medical procedure that you get after a miscarriage. Right? You can need it after a miscarriage. That does not involve abortion. So they are two very distinct things. But it's almost like this person, one could say, if you were looking at it on the cynical side, is you tried to abort your baby yourself using the abortion pills, and that didn't work, so you deserve what you get. Now, the other side of it is that these laws that say that doctors can be punished and sent to jail if they do anything whatsoever that can be considered assisting in an abortion procedure, or not supervising, but supporting it or endorsing it, leads them to basically say, like, how close to death are you before we can intervene? So that way they don't get sued. But when you have to time it like that, when you reduce the margin of safety to like, no, she absolutely was going to die. We absolutely had to do it. We had no choice. And look, we could prove it medically. We let her bleed out for 16 hours. That should not be the standard of care. You should not be cutting it that close. There should be some very clear directives. Right? If it's a miscarriage, you should be able to get a DNC if you've not expelled all of the fetal tissue, if you've used the abortion pill, because that's still an option for you, even though you can't get the abortion. Then if that doesn't go wrong, that's a medical complication. You should be able to get the DNC, because if we're really pro-life, right? Her teenage son watched her suffer for days after she took the pills, bedridden and moaning. In the early hours of November 12, 2022, her husband found her unresponsive in bed, her 3-year-old daughter at her side. An autopsy found unexpelled fetal tissue, confirming that the abortion had not fully completed. It also found a lethal combination of painkillers, including the dangerous opioid fentanyl. Miller had no history of drug use, the medical records state. Her family has no idea how she obtained them or what was going through her mind when she was trying to quell the pain, complete the abortion, or end her life. A medical examiner was unable to determine the manner of death. Her family later told a coroner she hadn't visited a doctor, quote, due to the current legislation on pregnancies and abortion. When a state committee of experts in maternal health, including 10 doctors, reviewed her case this year at the end of August, they immediately decided, quote, it was preventable, and blamed the state's abortion ban, according to members who spoke to ProPublica on the condition of anonymity. They came to that conclusion after weighing the entire chain of events, from Miller's underlying health conditions to her decision to manage her abortion alone, to her reticence to seek medical care. Quote, the fact that she felt she had to make these decisions, that she didn't have adequate choices here in Georgia, we felt that definitely influenced her case, one committee member told ProPublica. Quote, she's absolutely responding to this legislation. This is the second preventable death related to abortion bans that ProPublica is reporting this week. Amber Thurman, 28, languished in a suburban Atlanta hospital for 20 hours before doctors performed a DNC to treat sepsis that resulted from an incomplete abortion. It was too late. Quote, this young mother should be alive, raising her son and pursuing her dream of attending nursing school, Vice President Kamala Harris said of Thurman on Tuesday. This is exactly what we feared when Roe was struck down. There are almost certainly other deaths related to abortion access. Georgia's committee tasked with examining pregnancy-related deaths to improve maternal health has only reviewed cases through the fall of 2022. Such a lag is common in these committees, which are set up in each state. Most others have not even gotten that far. The details of their reviews are not shared with the public, but ProPublica obtained the Georgia Committee's summary report of Miller's death. ProPublica also reviewed death records and Miller's autopsy and spoke to her family. Her case adds to mounting evidence that exceptions to abortion bans do not, as billed, protect, quote, the life of the mother. Harrowing stories about denied care have been at the center of the upcoming presidential election, during which the right to abortion is on the ballot in 10 states. ProPublica's new reporting makes clear for the first time that in the wake of bans, women are losing their lives in ways that experts have deemed preventable. It also underscores the reality that abortion bans may not actually lead to a decrease in abortions, but for people like Miller, they have increased the degree and difficulty and risk. Miller grew up in Alabama and spent most of her adulthood in Atlanta, where she made a living braiding hair and doing nails. She had a soft spot for stray cats, nurtured a garden, and was known to break into dance at the sound of an old-school funk like the Commodores. At 4'9", she was a firecracker, her family said, quick to stand up for those she loved. That included her 3 kids, who range in age from 5 to 16, 3 kids who are now without a mother. So not only are we not pro-life, but we're pro-orphan. Yay. But about 8 years ago, she was diagnosed with lupus, an autoimmune disease in which the body attracts healthy tissue. Her sister said, symptoms include extreme fatigue, painful swollen joints, heart complications, and kidney disease. Miller experienced flare-ups of debilitating pain for which she had to seek radiation treatments. She often wasn't able to stand for long periods, and her hair fell out. It distressed her how often doctors dismissed her pain. She grew to doubt that they could give her help when she needed it. Soon after she was diagnosed, she suffered a major depressive episode, Tomlin Randall said. For months, she barely left her bed. Tomlin Randall cared for her sister's children during that time. There's no cure for lupus, but patients can manage symptoms with a mixture of drugs and therapies. 90% of those afflicted are women, and the condition is 3 times more common in Black women than white. Miller also had diabetes and hypertension. Those conditions layered on top of her lupus can be dangerously exacerbated by pregnancy and highly unpredictable. During both the pregnancy and the aftermath, according to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, patients with those conditions are also more likely to have a pregnancy that ends in miscarriage or premature birth, and are more likely to need a cesarean section, a major surgery that is especially hard for patients with diabetes to recover from. With support, some patients can remain stable and have healthy pregnancies, though the experience can be physically taxing and painful. In the worst cases, pregnancy with lupus can lead to high blood pressure that can quickly progress to seizures, kidney and liver dysfunction, and ultimately death. Studies have found the maternal death rate for women with lupus is 20-fold higher than those for those without lupus. The chance of relapses and flare-ups are also high in the postpartum period. Each patient's situation is different and needs careful evaluation of their particular health risks, including discussion of the option to end the pregnancy, said Dr. Sarah Horvath, an OB/GYN representing ACOG. Politicians who support abortion bans often point to their exceptions, which they say protect, quote, the life of the mother. During last week's debate, the former President Donald Trump called them, quote, very important. But the anti-abortion groups that drafted the bans wrote the exceptions to be as narrow as possible and persuaded lawmakers to impose steep criminal penalties, fearing doctors might stretch definitions to create loopholes. And then when situations like this happen and people say, hey, we want to make adjustments, those anti-abortion groups show up there and go, no, 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 no. It's God's will. The Lord works in mysterious ways. The exceptions are limited to acute emergencies, usually defined as, quote, when necessary in order to prevent the death of the pregnant woman or the substantial and irreversible physical impairment of a major bodily function. They also specifically prohibit mental health reasons for counting as health emergencies, even if a pregnant woman says she is thinking about harming herself. In Georgia, violating the law can cost doctors their license and subject them to prison terms of up to 10 years. So is it any wonder why the doctor doesn't wants to wait until somebody's practically bled out or in shock or their organ functions start to stop before they do that? The laws typically don't include any leeway for intervening earlier to treat patients with broader health risks that could make pregnancy more dangerous, such as lupus. ProPublica surveyed dozens of doctors in 9 states with abortion bans. None of their hospitals approve abortions for women with high-risk complications like lupus or diabetes unless the patient is already deteriorating and the issue is urgent. Horvath regularly sees patients with complications from those conditions in Pennsylvania, but they can't get care in their own state. Often the delay in figuring out where to go means their pregnancy is further along, and as a result, their conditions have become more dangerous. They show up to outpatient clinics already displaying signs of trouble, Horvath said, and immediately have to be sent to the hospital, where there's an operating room and a blood bank. It often takes time for patients and their providers to coordinate care in other states because there's so much confusion about the laws. Quote, people who are really suffering in these pregnancies really don't know where to go, Horvath said, or even if they can. And to show that elections matter, kids and cubs, in Pennsylvania, where they're talking about here, Canada wasn't the only place that had some by-elections this week. They had some in the state of Pennsylvania for the seats in the state legislature, and it seems that 2 Democrats won, and by winning, the state legislature in Pennsylvania is now Democrat-led by 1 seat. It flipped.
Wow.
Now, Pennsylvania is the biggest of the swing states with 19 electoral college votes, so I know you can't extrapolate from a by-election, but perhaps a sign of things to come. Miller's third pregnancy was difficult, and she never fully recovered, Tomlin Randall said. When Miller learned she was pregnant again in 2022, she ordered abortion pills for about $80 from a website called Aid Access, according to her 16-year-old son, Christian Cardenas. The organization, based in the Netherlands, is devoted to expanding abortion access to places where it's not legal. Patients contact a doctor in Europe who sends them pills from a supplier in India. According to one researcher, Aid Access serves about 7,000 patients a month in the U.S., nearly 90% of them in states with abortion bans or severe restrictions. Its founder, Rebecca Gompert, said it was clear the abortion pill did not cause her death. And if you are in Canada, should that stuff ever happen here, our laws are such that you are allowed to import a 3-month personal supply of any drug that has not been approved for use in Canada. So that's another thing to watch out for if you see conservatives trying to start to want to, for the protection of the citizens, we should make it such that they don't have the right to just import these drugs to use them in off-label ways. And not talking about abortion at all, that should ring a couple of alarm bells. Okay. The committee also did not believe Miller's death was caused by abortion medication. Her autopsy found extremely high doses of diphenhydramine, the main ingredient in Benadryl, and acetaminophen, which is found in Tylenol, in Miller's system, along with the fentanyl. Considering the quantity of drugs and the timing of her death, the committee also did not suspect the abortion pills themselves were in any way tainted. Self-managing abortions at home has skyrocketed since the Supreme Court overturned the constitutional right to abortion because of access to pills that can be ordered online, researchers say. Major studies, the Food and Drug Administration and the World Health Organization, have found abortion pills to be more than 90% effective when taken correctly, and in the first trimester. Deaths due to abortion pills are exceedingly rare. Complications can develop if some fetal tissue remains in the uterus, where it can lead to sepsis, a grave infection. Patients are supposed to follow up with a doctor to make sure the abortion has fully completed and go to the hospital if bleeding heavily or exhibiting other symptoms. Miller's family does not know how far along her pregnancy was when she took the abortion pills, but soon enough she was in excruciating pain. And that's how she remained for days, until she took the potent drug mixture. Her family doesn't know what she was thinking when she did it, but can't fathom that she would want to end her life. She was excited about the future and drawing closer to her church, her sister Tomlin Randall said. So she might have been in so much pain. And she says, I heard that fentanyl helps with pain.
Yeah.
So let's add another layer of risk.
Look, here's the thing. Pain is I have a very high threshold, like a ridiculously high threshold of pain. When I tore my shoulder, I discovered how complex the human shoulder is and how you should not take it for granted. I would wake up at 2 a.m. in the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. So much so that I thought, if this is going to kill me, just take me now, because I can't do this anymore. I can understand why someone would say, give me the drugs, whatever they are, because every split second is hell. Hell. So I'm empathetic towards her when it comes to this.
Just ask anybody who's come down with a case of shingles.
Yeah.
They'll tell you.
Yeah.
She was trying to terminate the pregnancy, not terminate herself. It was significant to the State Maternal Mortality Review Committee that Miller did not feel she could seek medical care. Although Georgia courts have said women can't be prosecuted for getting abortions, the state has sent mixed messages. While some state bans explicitly say women can't be prosecuted, Georgia's ban leaves open that possibility. In 2019, a district attorney on the outskirts of Metro Atlanta called abortion murder and said women, quote, should prepare for the chance that they could be criminally prosecuted for having an abortion. That was the understanding in Miller's family. Quote, if you get caught trying to do anything to get rid of the baby, her son Christian told ProPublica, you get jail time for that. So, yeah, not directly related to Canada, but absolutely wanted to read it in because this is exactly what everybody said would happen.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, as they're getting around to look and study these deaths, that's exactly what's happening.
And if you think it can't happen here, you're foolish and naive.
Now, this is
I'm telling you, if we don't stand up to people who want to take away this medical decision, it will happen here.
And this is,
like you said, they're doing it in Alberta, sorry, but, you know, handing over to Catholic-run hospitals where they do not do anything like that.
Yep.
It's a backdoor method, along with the protecting the unborn, protecting pregnant women. But there are laws in the books already for that.
and
They're
this is
just
not
trying
a
to backdoor it.
this is not a childless cat lady.
No.
She has 3 kids
Mm-hmm.
who now don't have a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She's not someone who's using abortion as contraception. She has 3 kids.
Yeah.
She had underlying medical conditions that can complicate a pregnancy. There's no exception to the law for that. She self-administered an abortion because she couldn't get one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fetal tissue did not fully expel.
Mm-hmm.
So she has sepsis. She went there to be treated for sepsis. But the laws are so broadly written that while treating for sepsis could also be interpreted as treating for an abortion. So I don't want to go to jail. So
can't help you.
Tough it out, slugger.
Mm-hmm.
Come back when you're real sick.
We said this would happen. We had a panel of women on this show just a few years ago. When it looked like Roe v. Wade was going to be struck down, we had a panel. Then we had another panel a few months after it was struck down. Same group of women making commentary about it, telling us some of their own personal stories. And I would be willing to host them again if we can make arrangements to do it again. If you would be willing, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we can do that, absolutely. So yeah, eyes wide open, kids. Mm-hmm. Eyes wide open. Mr. Wesley, do we have a show?
We do indeed, sir.
All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring. Word of mouth is priceless. Tell your peeps and poops all about us. Woohoo! We love it when you do. Thank you so much. If you would like to not miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl. She sponsored our pod page. She's so fabulous. Go to podpage.com/TheTrueNorthEagerBeaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words, or scan the QR code that just magically appeared under my chin. And that will take you right there. If you click subscribe when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, will come directly to you. And listeners who are listening at home at the podcast versions, I know you won't hear this until you hear this, but I'm finally in the episode descriptions for the month we're currently in.
Yes.
So I'm doing well at catching up. Send me courage and strength and lots more hot chocolate so that I can get completely caught up. Now, if you'd like to help us in other ways, then you need to make like Kit Elaine. Have a beyond awesome day, first priority. And remember then to smash the button before you leave. And if you want to smash with our buttons, well then you need to surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have not 1, not 2, but 3 buttons for you. Like, share, and subscribe. Get freaky. And if you'd like to help us in other ways, then the QR code by Mr. Grizzly's head brings you to our tip jar. If you like what we do, you want to encourage us to do more, you feel sorry for me, you want to contribute to the Feed Lola Fund. Hey, all the reasons are good. All the reasons are good. So you can find our tip jar there at our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And if you drop a little bit of coinage in there for us, or even a few bills, not only will you earn our undying gratitude, but as we keep on saying, your sex appeal goes up 37.2%. We tested it in our labs. And then we had our old pal Jake tested in the What You Can Do labs. and the results were corroborated. So this is a thing. So, if you want to become more magnetic, tipping is very, very sexy. All right. Enough kidding around. Because democracy is something that you do. Today is the 19th, which means by-election day in the Bay of Quinte area in the province of Ontario for the provincial legislature. The old seat occupied by Todd Smith, who was the Minister of Education for a couple of days before leaving to take a vice president job at Can-Do. Interesting lateral move. It seems that there could be an upset. It looks, as we mentioned on the show, that the Liberals have picked a very, very, very good candidate that is very well known in the area, very respected. Could be one of those situations again, so far from an election, if somebody wants to send a message. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But it would be nice to have a narrative there to put a little concern in the camp of Doug Ford, because he's been just a bit too confident and cocky lately.
He needs a smackdown.
Yeah. So please, 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 please. And remember, kids, don't let kids do democracy alone. So if you live in that area, bring someone with you. And of course, if you are in Toronto, it's the last day to register if you want to be a candidate in the by-election for Ward 15. And then we will have at some point Kit Dan on the show to talk to him about his campaign once the nominations close, and then we enter the next phase of it, right, to find out what's going on there. So that's because democracy is something that you do part. And remember to write those letters to keep the fire to the feet on foreign interference, and in Ontario specifically about kids in care. The latter one is very, very, very important to me personally. So I appreciate it if you do. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom?
Less words of wisdom and more of something that's a bit of a surprise to me. This is from last night. The public inquiry into foreign interference. Let me just bring this over here to read this into the record, because I'm just learning this now. This took place. This was published at 7:30 p.m. last night.
Yep.
Aaron O'Toole says he considered expelling a Conservative senator over foreign influence concerns.
Yes, Senator O.
Yes, testifying in Ottawa before the inquiry into foreign interference, O'Toole said one of his MPs was told by a local mayor that a Conservative senator was actively working on behalf of a Chinese government-owned company. There was a member of our upper chamber caucus that an MP brought to me that he had been directly or indirectly promoting or lobbying an interest of a Chinese state-owned enterprise in a riding in Ontario, O'Toole told the inquiry. There had been previous stories about sponsored travel and other things that led me to have some serious concerns considering some of the subjects that we were discussing within caucus. But it was that issue in a town in Ontario potentially advocating for an economic interest that really forced me to make a decision about some concerns about that member. O'Toole said the senator took a pretty extensive trip to China, which had been the subject of media reports. He said he felt it was completely inappropriate for a member of the Senate to be advocating for a commercial interest related to a foreign entity for a riding in Canada. He is correct. Mm-hmm. So it's funny when I go on the Twitter and I see people screaming about Beijing interference with the Liberal government, Trudeau. So I'm like, oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And if you want to add to that, Senator Victor O was appointed to the Senate by Stephen Harper.
Mm-hmm.
And public revelation of this by Mr. O'Toole comes in September 2024, after the Honorable Victor O retired from the Senate on June 10th, 2024, because he had reached the mandatory
75.
Age,
yeah. How interesting. Yes. Also,
so he got to serve a full term to the end before any mention of him went public, even though it seems Mr. O'Toole had that information.
and did nothing about it. It's funny how,
Well, I'm not sure if he did nothing about it. Maybe he reported it up.
Oh,
But
who knows?
he
You're right.
certainly didn't. He certainly, while
Didn't
all the
expel him.
talk was going on about China weighing in the pocket of Trudeau, as Trudeau kept on sticking a finger in Chairman Xi Jinping's eye by keeping Meng Wanzhou rather than just surrendering her, and then letting all the businesses in Canada, delaying so much on Huawei that all the businesses in Canada decided, you know what, we're just going to go another way.
Mhm.
And then when Chairman Xi tried to have that moment in front of the cameras, and then Trudeau dared to say, excuse me, that's not how it works in a democracy,
Mhm.
when to a leader that comes from a nation where the culture of saving face and not taking the dirty laundry out in public is a
Mhm.
really, really big thing. But yes, this is the party, the Communist Party of China really wants the liberals to win when the Conservative Party signed away part of our sovereignty for 31 years and had Victor O in their ranks.
Yes, by that conservative math, 2 + 2 = April 43rd. I mean, it doesn't. Come on.
And the Conservative Party of Canada chose not to disclose any of this information to the public.
In the Conservative Party of Canada, under
They
Stephen
kept
Harper,
the secret.
when Senator O was in his position and Pierre Poilievre was in cabinet, signed a secret 31-year deal with China, the FIPA agreement, and he signed it in Moscow. But none of that is suspect, right?
No.
None of
Not
that.
at all.
Signed the deal in secret. We're tied to China for 31 years. It's less than 31 now because that was done, 10 years ago almost?
I think so now, yeah. Close to. For those, since Mr. Grizzly mentioned it before we go off, the testimony has started again. And one thing that's important about this is that Justice Marie-Josée Hogg was asked to look into the NSICOP report,
Mhm.
to talk about stuff about whether or not, they could be naming names and that type of stuff, because that's been the whole push from the conservatives. It's like, you need to name names, you need to name names. And that is, well, they're not going to get any help from her on that. She is basically on record as saying that she's aware of it. They've asked us to look into it and like this, but basically, don't count on me to name any names. So the person who is leading the inquiry,
Mhm.
okay, the judge,
Yes.
is saying that it's not time to release names.
No. Well, the inquiry is still ongoing. You can't release names now. It's a criminal offense to do so.
I know, but they're still calling for it.
Of course they are, because they want to
They're still calling.
distract.
Right. So we have some people testifying here. Michael Chong testified yesterday. Aaron O'Toole testified. Jenny Kwan testified. And now they're going to have some people from the parties themselves, and sort of like the directors of the parties and stuff like that. Certain parties come and testify today. But like yesterday, the day before, and today, if you want to watch some testimony to hear how it affected certain Canadian MPs and some things that went,
Mhm.
how parties dealt with it, would probably be 3 days to get some testimony. 'Cause some of the days of the testimony are a little drier,
Yes, of
right?
course.
And looking at other things.
There's a lot to sift through. There's a lot of information.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, she is not going to play that game. So it was basically a firm no from her on that issue. So there will be no names. And now, even though because the head of the commission says it, the conservatives should be stopping with the release the names. It's like, if even the judge won't release the names, then maybe there's a good reason to not release the names.
Exactly.
I will just say. All right,
All right, kids and
Mr.
cubs, let's
Grizzly,
wrap this one up. Yes,
let's
sir.
cue. It could be a tougher world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself, Mr. Grizzly. Cue the cock, and we have some Easter eggs. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
All right, so now that we were able to figure out the issue yesterday, and we can show you this that we wanted to yesterday, but we couldn't until just now. Enjoy.
Well, hey everybody, Cranky here with a special report. The mother of all clusterfucks has landed, and the shitstorm's here. Russian-backed extremists in the US and Canada are flooding social media with disinformation, trying to seep into the mainstream narratives. The United States Department of Justice's doppelganger investigation exposed over 2,800 people involved in a full-on operation to fuck with US elections and crush support for Ukraine. Russian intelligence paid influencers and tricked American commentators who apparently had no clue they were getting Russian intel cash. The DOJ's indictment of Russian nationals tied to tenant media and far-right figures like Lauren Chen and Lauren Southern proves what we've been saying all along. Russian interference is real, strategic, and laser-focused on manipulating public opinion in Western democracies. Southern and Chen were running their propaganda machine to divide and destabilize not just the US, but Canada too. Their videos attacked everything from Ukraine and immigration to vaccines to us LGBTQIA+ communities and Trudeau's policies, using disinformation tactics that Russian state media has been perfecting for years. But here's where it gets even more fucked up. Pierre Poilievre still has no security clearance. That's right, and he's been seen with these people while pushing Kremlin talking points. Loyal opposition, my ice-cold ass! His silence and complicity in spreading far-right garbage that aligns with Russian disinformation is no accident. Whether he knows it or not, and he fucking knows, he's a pawn in a bigger geopolitical game. We can't let PP continue to flirt with far-right extremism. This un-Canadian bullshit is giving hostile foreign forces the power to tear our democracy apart from the inside out. This is bigger than politics. It's about protecting our elections, our media, and Canadian sovereignty. The truth is out, and now it's time to fight harder than ever because our democracy depends on it. Until next time, stay frosty.
Well, that makes me think of this.
This is outrageous. Where are the armed men who come in to take the protesters away? Where are they? This kind of behavior is never tolerated in Boracua. You shout like that, they put you in jail right away. No trial, no nothing. Journalists, we have a special jail for journalists.
I thought I'd drop that in there. Alrighty, I gotta go. Oh, you had something, sir?
We can wait.
Yeah, okay.
We'll do it tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, tomorrow's Friday. Yeah.
Yep.
Alrighty, I'll see you later.